The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward.
I always equated training to mental toughening.
Welcome to the Business Pump Podcast.
It has the potential to change your whole life.
Connect with fitness professionals and turn your passion for fitness into a successful business.
Hard work is the first, second, and third part of the formula.
You gotta keep moving, let's go. Don't quit till you got nothing left.
And now your host, Michael Groff.
What's up, Michael here, and welcome back to another episode of the Business Pump Podcast. I actually wasn't even sure if I could upload this episode today, not because I didn't have the interview recorded. That's already been recorded a few weeks ago with today's guest, but my podcast host was recently the victim of a cyber attack. Some hackers was attacking their servers and requiring money in exchange for the attack to stop. But everything seems to be cleared up and I can still upload this episode on time. So before I get into today's guest, once again, I want to remind you about a giveaway that is going on in celebration of this podcast. We're giving away, or my agency, Fitter Media, we're giving away a brand new Theragun Mini to one lucky winner. So if you have not entered in for that giveaway yet, just go to fittermedia.com/BP. That's fitrmedia.com/BP. And you can check out all the details on how to enter over there. But I have a really cool guest on today, and a lot of you probably know him, and some of you might even take some of his supplements or follow some of his programming. And today's guest is going to be Adrian Conway. If you did not know who Adrian is, he is the co-founder of the supplement company FNX, and he is also one of the coaches on the Brute Strength program. And if you've been following me for a while, like on some of my other social channels or on my YouTube channel, you know that I'm a huge fan of the Brute Strength programming and how they create somewhat of a personalized training plan without all of the high fees associated with personal training. But in today's episode, we go into his fitness journey. How, was he always passionate about fitness? He discusses a little bit about how he trained for football all through his teens and into his 20s, and how he ended up not making it into the NFL and how that helped him find CrossFit. Then we go into talking about his supplement company, FNX, how him and his partner built that supplement company and how they're starting to expand into bigger markets. And then we talk a little bit about Brute Strength training, how they started Brute Strength, and even how Brute Strength got its name. So if you do know Brute Strength and you have been following their programs, you may be interested in how Brute Strength got their name. I had no idea how it got its name, and today I finally found out. But yeah, I had a great time talking with Adrian, so without any further ado, here is the interview with Adrian Conway. Hey Adrian, my man, what's going on?
You know, just another day living the dream, man. So a lot going on, but I enjoy all of it.
Cool. So I'll give a little bit of intro for you on the podcast when it launches, but why don't you explain to the listeners, who is Adrian Conway?
Oh man, that's a complex question and it could be a very long-winded answer. I'll give you guys something as simple and as defining as possible. First and foremost, I'm a Christian. I'm an individual that really, really loves sport, competition, and fitness. And I kind of found fitness in that order. I grew up loving sport and athletics and competing at a high level, and I chased that most of my life, and it led me to a career in the fitness industry. My most defining roles that I play in my life currently are as husband and father. And then, of course, I get to dabble in entrepreneurship a little bit as well, which I'm sure we'll get to in more detail.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, first of all, I like how you said you're a Christian in the beginning, like I am as well. And that's kind of what attracted to me to your profile in the beginning is just you're open, how open you are with your faith. I really like that, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I just try to share things that I love with everyone else. And that's a really important one for me.
Cool. So you've competed multiple years at the games. Where did your fitness journey start? Were you always passionate about fitness, or did that kind of grow over time? How did that start? And what's your fitness story, I should say?
Yeah, my fitness story roots in sports. So I was training my the vast majority of my life to be a football player. I played all sports growing up, fell in love with football and basketball through my high school years, recognized that my genetic potential was going to lead me down the road of football. And so I pursued that probably from about the time I was 14 or 15 on. My training was a priority for me to learn as much about it as possible, how to train it, how to, compete at the highest level possible. And also what I needed to I dabbled with fueling myself a little bit. I got into supplements, of course, at a teenage years, but mainly it roots all the way back to there. Long story short, I ended up playing Division I football on a scholarship. It was a blessing. Played 2 years of arena football. Never made it into the NFL, which was my lifelong goal. And then fortunately enough, because I studied exercise science in college, or kinesiology, at many universities, at Weber State University, it was called Human Performance. Because I was already in that field of study, I was looking to continue my education every year, just like most professionals in the field do. And it led me to CrossFit. And so I found what CrossFit was by definition, saw they had a certificate course to take, took the course, fell in love with it, saw even prior to that there was a means of competition. And that's what initially drew me there. And then, through my competitive pursuit, it led me to understand the value of the community and actually helping people pursue, lifelong goals of getting their first pull up and living a longer, healthier, happier life. So that's it in a nutshell.
So did you find CrossFit while you're still training for football, or did you not qualify for the NFL and now you kind of were looking for something as like a competitive outlet? Like, how did that take place?
Yeah, so it was a little bit of both. So I was still I was in my second season of arena football, which was an awesome way for me to get football out of my system.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of guys, especially guys that are on scholarship and play Division I, they spent most of their life pursuing that and really have no way to kind of play it away from themselves or their heart. So like they just don't make it to the league and then they're heartbroken, right? Mm-hmm. For me, I found that arena football helped me get it out of my system. I recognized that I was ready to be finished. I certainly didn't want to play in that league for an extended amount of time. Mm-hmm. But during that second season, I stumbled across what was better known as, at the time, CrossFit football. So John Wellborn was the guy that had designed that methodology, right? And he was an early age CrossFit competitor, played in the NFL for many years. So that was my first real exposure to CrossFit training in the realm of power sport, right? So that's specifically in the shorter energy systems. They're priming you to be strong and athletic in the means of football, but it still has kind of, in a way, directed, constantly varied functional movements at high intensity. So that was my first exposure, and it was, during my football career.
Right when you found, like, when did you make that decision, like, you want to compete as a competitive athlete in CrossFit? Did that kind of come with time, or right when you found CrossFit, you immediately set your sights on competing?
Yeah, once I saw the guys that were at the CrossFit game in 2010, it was Graham Holmberg, and that was the year that Rich Froning notoriously took a very close second, kind of established himself. And I saw what those guys were capable of physically, and then my stature was relatively close. I wasn't terribly taller than them, and I could do the things that they were doing. And so I was just like, cool, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring. The following year in 2011, it was the first year of the Open. And so that was it. That was the beginning right there. I saw what they could do. I was like, oh, I could do that. And then I tried it.
Oh, that's really cool, man. So did you ever compete as an individual, or were you always on a team?
Yeah, I did. I competed as an individual in 2011. I didn't make it to the games. I finished 6th in the Southwest region that year. That was my first CrossFit competition. In 2012 and 2013, I competed on a team and we won the CrossFit Games. 2014, I was planning to compete as an individual and tore my pec 3 days before the regional. 2015, I went as an individual and I finished 21st in the world there that year. And then 2016, I had my body for the vast majority of the year from competing at the games that year. I'd banged myself up pretty good, specifically my shoulder. And I didn't qualify again. I was 7 points out from qualifying in 2016. And then 2017, I was on a team again, and we won the CrossFit Games again. So one time as an individual, many-time regional competitor individual, 3-time team, 3-time champ.
Nice. So obviously you're extremely passionate about fitness, and you are a coach for Brute Strength. You are a co-founder of FNX. I first want to talk a little bit about FNX. Like, how did like the founding of FNX get started? What's the story behind that?
You know, the story behind FNX is pretty simple. Skylar Farnes, a local here in Utah, him and I met through CrossFit in 2016. And he's a very business savvy, business minded individual, but very passionate about the sport of fitness. Our relationship initially began as like almost like, hey, I have a dream of starting this supplement company. I'd love to bring you on as like a top tier influencer or athlete. And through several conversations that we had, he saw my value to the company and what we could potentially build together. And we decided to partner up. And that's what gave birth to FNX and where we sit currently today. And that was, you know, a little over 4 years ago that we met. We're currently almost about 4 years old. We're 4 years old as a company now. But essentially it took about a year and a half in the making to kind of get the ball rolling. And we launched our line in 2017 at the CrossFit Games. And for me, a simple answer, like to why products, which is something that, you know, or why supplements, which is something people often ask me, it's because I've been a lifelong athlete, and it's something that I have consumed and taken all my life, right from the time I was 15. And I wanted to further my education on where the products were coming from, what they were specifically designed for. And there's really no better way to do that than actually be able to take charge of yourself and connect with a good chemist and formulate your own line.
Especially in the supplement world, there are a lot of like garbage supplements out there. And I imagine the supplement industry is like extremely competitive. Would that be correct?
Yeah, it is. Yep. Very competitive.
So how was it growing FNX in those first few years? Kind of was niching the company down to like CrossFit what helped grow the company in the first few years, or how did that work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our initial desire was to serve who we know, right? So that meant for us to be very organic and authentic with my experience, my friendships, my relationships within the CrossFit space. So much of our first originating products were to serve the problems and solve the problems that we knew within that space, whether it was people that couldn't tolerate whey products or pre-workout that escalated people's heart rate too much. So we wanted to be able to step in the gap and serve the community that way. And it very much worked out for us because of that, I believe. But honestly, from a business practically perspective, that wasn't like necessarily our intention. It was just to serve who we knew, because it's worthless for us to try to play a game that we were unfamiliar with. Like, I'm not a bodybuilder, so we didn't start there. And I'm not a triathlete, so we didn't start there. So we started by serving the functional fitness community the best that we could. Now we've got the capacity to build bridges with these new audiences and new communities and serve them as well.
So would you kind of credit the initial growth to starting small and then branching out instead of like immediately saying, oh, we're the supplement company that's serving all athletes?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, because you've got to create an identity, right? Like, you think about business from a perspective, you got to create an identity. If I am unrecognizable to the bodybuilding community, I at least have to have a heck of a resume. And they at least have to see that I'm taking care of athletes and promoting health and wellness and performance at a top level in order for them to want to be invested in products, specifically in an industry that is saturated, like you mentioned. So absolutely, it's helped us.
So when you talked about you guys are kind of getting a little bit larger now where you can start branching out into some different like audiences, how do you guys go about that? Do you like pick up influencers who are in those audiences and sponsor them? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so we've dabbled with a lot of different ways. Our activation process varies constantly. We're always trying to figure out right now. I mean, we're still a startup, right? Like, we're still a small business. I mean, we're year 4 and some change.
Yeah.
So our window to miss the mark is still very large. With that in mind, to answer your question directly, we're always looking at the return on investment. So yes, we partner with influencers. Yes, we partner with athletes. But really, what value does an athlete or an influencer carry for us, right? The biggest value that we've seen so far is the feedback that they can provide. So it's great to be able to use athletes that create a larger reach or potentially expose you to a new audience. But really, what a lot of these relationships have helped us with is that it gives us an opportunity to actually connect with a community. So, for example, if I knew nothing of CrossFit and I had an opportunity to work with someone like Jacob Hebner, who we have worked with throughout the years, he would give me such great insight on like, well, this is what I experienced as a training athlete. This is how I recover. This is what I would take. This is what I think a lot of my gym members need to take. This is what a lot of the athletes that I coach need to take. And so we basically look at different avenues or different communities, and we try to find people within those communities that help us help that group. So yes, influencers are certainly a part of what we do, but we've certainly activated them and utilized them.
So we talked a little bit about FNX. There's something I really wanted to touch on about you and like your personal brand. Obviously, you're branded as like CrossFit and like the CrossFit guy, and also FNX. But I did notice something about you. You do post all the time. Is that because you love the gram, or do you make it a constant effort to post twice a day, every day? Is that like strategic, or what made you decide to post twice a day?
No, it's not necessarily strategic. I mean, I do understand the way that algorithms work and the way that I can appear, but if I don't have something to post that day, I'm not going to stress about posting a second post. So for me, it's like my brand personally and my brand as an entrepreneur is highly dependent upon my audience and their attention, and attention matters. So I understand that. Now, I'm not going to post something if I don't think it either brings, excitement, entertainment, or education to the table, because, it is what it is. Sometimes I have lessons that I'd like to share. Sometimes it's a spiritual post. Sometimes it's about fitness or like a tip. Sometimes it's about working hard in the grind. I'm a passionate individual. I have a podcast, Rise and Pod with Adrian Conway, that I launch an episode every day through the week. So it's like I've got a lot running through my mind. So it's very easy for me to kind of establish and create kind of content. So it is a bit of a passionate thing. I certainly enjoy it.
Because I do know some people really make a strategic effort in the way they put out content. I just was curious if like any of that was running through your mind, like when you create the content.
Yeah, it's less of a focus, right? Like I'm not the best with hashtags. I'm not the best with timing of the day. I mean, I've learned about those things and understand them. But what I don't want for me is I don't want Instagram to feel like work. I don't want my Twitter to feel like work. I don't want my Facebook to feel like work, right? I enjoy it. And of course I do touch base like, oh man, I haven't posted. Or if I miss a day of posting, I'm like, I should post something today. So I just give myself diligent amount of time, 10 minutes, 15 minutes to like at least reflect and then get something out to my audience, just to stay on their train of thought a bit.
Because I was interviewing a nutrition coach the other day, and we were kind of talking about the same thing, creating content for like fitness businesses on Instagram. And I asked him, like, does he put a lot of stock in the way he creates the content, or does all those little tips and strategies kind of mentally drag him down? And he goes, and his answer was, yeah, a lot of those tips and strategies can work, but ultimately if it starts to mentally drag you down, you just got to pick what works for you.
Yeah, what like the tips that he's offering, or he feels like he's losing energy to do it?
I mean, like all the tips and strategies you can get from like Instagram, like post during this time of day and it will get this much reach. Like all those little tweaks that you can read online, like it can just, from someone who's starting a fitness business from scratch and they think they have to follow all those small tips, it can soon just like mentally drag you down and you finally just have to pick what works for you. So I was kind of interested what your take was on that.
Yeah, I would say it's the same kind of opinion, right? It's an ode to the fact that it's good to understand, but it's also that you've got to keep it fresh, you've got to enjoy it, and you've got to understand like audience and audience growth do matter, but the audience and the individuals within that audience are what matter most. Like, do you really have real followers? Do you have their real attention? Are you getting real engagement? Do they really care what you have to say? So I'm not really focused on growing my following and all the things that a lot of people are focused on. I just want to serve the people that are following me.
That's really nice. I think a lot of people put stock in more of the number of their following rather than the followers they already have. So that's really cool, what you just said there. I now want to move on. Like we talked a little bit about your fitness journey, FNX. What about brute strength training? How did you become a part of brute strength? Because I followed the brute strength program for a while, and it was like amazing. Like, how did you get involved with brute strength?
Yeah, so I've been involved with brute from its infancy. While I'm not a partner in the company, I really helped establish everything that is a part of it. So in 2014, so I'll go back another step. In 2012 and 2013, when we won the CrossFit Games with Hacks Pack, right? Ute CrossFit, my teammate, Michael Kaziu, was ending in 2013. He was ending his time here in Salt Lake City, and he was moving back to Louisiana, where he was going to serve an internship at LSU. And at LSU, he created a lot of relationships, learned a lot about business. And, he came back with this new business savvy and understanding. Essentially, it took him in the direction of understanding that he didn't want to pursue a career of owning a brick and mortar gym. He wanted to do something online. And because of our success that we had as a team, we all accumulated a bit of a following. And his relationship with one of our now CEO and at the time co-founder, Matt Bruce, who is an amazing Olympic weightlifter, right? Historically representing our country, Matt and he decided to partner on some programs that they were developing for athletes down in Louisiana, just some CrossFit athletes that needed help with lifting. And then Mike would kind of help with some gymnastics and some conditioning, but they did it together, and they recognized the value in supporting one another to support these athletes. That is where Brute Strength was built. It was Bruce Barbell in combination with Ute CrossFit, and that made Brute. And so Brute Strength was born. And as a staff, the way that we initially started was myself, Tommy Hackenbrook, Matt Bruce, Chris Hinshaw, and a gentleman named Nick Sorrell, who was our gymnastics coach and specialist, Division I gymnast. Basically created a curriculum, both live and a series of, ebooks and a bunch of other great stuff for athletes to become pros at the sport of fitness. So we had a specialist from gymnastics, specialist from endurance, and a specialist from Olympic weightlifting that allowed each one of these specialties to be highlighted within our program. Someone like myself, then, as a specific generalist in our coaching staff, I get to mold the program, put it together, and allow it to be distributed at a top level, so that whether people are training for an hour a day, or if they want to go to the CrossFit Games and are training 3 to 4 hours a day, have an opportunity to really level up their performances. So that's really where it came from. I've been involved all the way since it started. And it's been a wonderful journey. Coaching is still a passion of mine, so I'm very grateful that I still get to do that.
Nice. Yeah, like I found Brute Strength I think around November of 2019, and at the time I was looking for a training program, and I was trying to decide between Brute Strength training or ComTrain. And one of the things that really attracted me to Brute Strength training is how you create almost as much of a specialized program as you can for an athlete without like the high personal training fees. Why don't you tell the listeners, in case they don't know what Brute Strength training is and how you guys do that, a little bit more, how you create somewhat personalized training plans without the personal training costs that come with it?
Yeah, absolutely. So this has been an evolution for our company. We recognize that customization is really everything. And it's expensive to pay $250 to $300 a month. Not everyone can afford that for personal coaching. And so we wanted to have a program where you have a community base where there's general workouts, but also there's an a la carte option, which means like your fitness and your choice type focus, where we may have an Olympic weightlifting session on a Monday that's focused on pulling, and another one that's focused on squatting. And you get to pick which one that you're going to actually go through based off of your particular weaknesses. So when people sign up for Brute, they go through a 2-week on-ramp and testing protocol that gives us all the numbers that we would care to know. And then they get to be implemented into our live program, where they get to then make choices on, hey, are they going to work on hanging from their gymnastics development today? Are they going to work on inverted pressing, which might be handstand walk, handstand pressing, kipping handstand push-ups, deficit handstand push-up, the list goes on. But essentially, that's the way that we get to apply it to a broad base of athletes. So, 200 people could be on our program at once, and each and every one of them get an opportunity to make it just slightly customizable to themselves. The next level to that is, of course, in our aerobic work, everything's based off of personalized pacing. So when you test, your running tempos, your rowing tempos, all of that stuff is preset based off of the way that you performed and your PRs. And then of course, what we've got, which really I think is one of the most valuable elements of our training protocol, is our gymnastics level system. So we have a system that goes all the way from level 0 all the way to like 28, 28 being an elite gymnast, someone that's almost ready to compete for a gold medal. And it focuses on the basics and the contractions that are going to help people be successful in the sport of CrossFit, but also build a broad base so that as we learn new skills, as Dave Castro announces new skills that we've never seen before, the athletes that have successfully gone through this tier program are going to have more success because they've got the base of hanging, grip work, strength work, and all the balance work that it requires, and flexibility to be a great gymnast.
Yeah, that gymnast, the whole brute strength training plan is like incredible, but especially the gymnastics part of brute strength. I believe that's like one of the best gymnastics programs like a CrossFitter can get. Like that, when I was doing those gymnastic workouts, I was only on like the very bottom rung of the levels. So like, oh, these are so hard. Like it was not easy.
Yeah, not easy at all, man. That's a challenging thing, and that's the way we want it to be.
Mhm.
And it highlights a lot of things that people are missing in their traditional gym setting. You know, we've got coaches that are aiding people in walking in the gym and getting their first kipping handstand push-up
Mhm.
before they're ever able to spend minutes upside
Mhm.
down, before they're able to establish a handstand hold. Know that, of course, that's backwards and contrary to the way that actual young gymnast is taught how to compete and perform.
So a little bit more on brute strength training. In the first few years of brute strength training, what strategies did you use to build it as a business, I should say, like to get people on the program?
It was easy.
It was easy.
So to be, yeah, it was, because to be honest with you, we were first, right?
Mhm.
So what has now started to birth, as like, at the time there were a lot of people already in the space
Mhm.
offering programming. There were free training. There were free blogs. There were companies that were doing training like us, but there was nothing really like we were, a team of coaches that were specializing in specific areas, putting those areas together,
Mhm.
giving people an opportunity to have a customizable program, but not at the one-on-one rate.
Mhm.
And so with that being said, initially it was more simple, right?
Mhm.
Facebook ads weren't as prevalent. We didn't have new competitors coming into the space. And it was at a time when CrossFit was really thriving,
Mhm.
right? If you
Mhm.
think about that time, 2013 through, 2017, 2018, my goodness, like, certainly like the fastest growing sport in the world, it was at a great time for us to have that company and rolling. We were rolling. So early it was, and then of course, as things got more wise in spending, the way that we appeared to people with ads, coming up with some new nuanced programs that could supplement our live, constantly ongoing programs, and that's where we got Brute Body from. So there's a lot of different things that we've done and pivoted throughout the years. And of course, we've done some growing, and we've also done some shrinking, especially once CrossFit really took a step back with their media coverage. Because what that did is it changed the way the games were perceived. Once regionals left, a lot of people were demotivated to train the way that we were coaching them to train, right? They were like, oh man, I don't know if I can afford $100 a month, because it's like, what's the point? There's not even regionals now, right? So there were a lot of people, and we had to still figure out ways to serve that community, still be attractive as a coaching staff to those individuals. And so we've learned a lot through the years, man, and we're very excited, to say the least, about where CrossFit is now.
I know I am extremely excited about the future of CrossFit as well. Um, if you could go back to like yourself, either as an athlete or as an entrepreneur, like what is a piece of advice you'd give yourself?
That's a great question. This answer probably changes for me daily. My advice would be, stay the course and trust the process, to be honest with you. For me personally, my journey has pivoted so many times, right? Like my goal, like I shared with you and the listeners earlier, it's like I wanted to make it to the NFL, and that was a failed dream for me. And then the first year I competed as an individual, I wanted to make it to the CrossFit Games. That was a failed dream for me. But then on a team, I got to win it. And then I did get to make it as an individual. And then I did find a sport after a few years in where I was like, you know what, I really love this, because my hard work is shown here. I'm making great relationships. I'm surrounded by people that just want to be a better version of themselves. And what it did is it opened my eyes to, like, maybe this is where I was meant to be. And this is where my journey was taking me all along. And then it's the same thing with entrepreneurship, man. I never dreamed that I would be able to co-found a supplement company. And it's not what I dreamed about as a 16-year-old young man. But due to the way that and I'm fortunate in this way, due to the way that I was able to build a brand on social media and like represent who I am, my relationship with God, the ways that I carry myself on the competition floor and all that stuff gave me this opportunity, to be honest with you. So I would remind myself to stay the journey no matter what that looked like. And then also, make sure you treat people how they want to be treated. To be honest, that's a big one. I think it's one thing to treat people how you want to be treated, but it's continue to treat people the way they want to be treated, and be mindful of that, because relationships and networking are what has created so many opportunities for myself, both with Brute, both with FNX. Our company wouldn't be where it's at with FNX without friendships, and support and help, and people being complete strangers that fall in love with our products, being willing to post on their Instagram and talk about how great it is. So that's a long answer, but that's the one I'd try to give myself.
That's really powerful. And I think what I can learn from you, and like the listeners can learn from you as well, is like it sounds like you weren't afraid to try new things. Like the temptation, it seems like, could be after you didn't qualify for the NFL, you could easily just went on with life and not try to pursue anything else. But then you found CrossFit, and that led you to competing at the games. But still, if you, after not qualifying for the games as an individual, you could have gave up there, but no, you went on, and now you're competing on the team. I mean, if you weren't trying new things, we wouldn't be here talking today. So I think that's a really big lesson we can learn from you as well.
Thank you. No, absolutely. I think that's great. And yeah, to go along with that, it's like, you just can't be afraid to stick your neck out there.
Mm-hmm.
Just like you reaching out to get me on this podcast today, right? Like we don't formally know each other.
Yeah.
But you shot a shot, and here we are, and we're connecting, and it'll be a relationship going forward now. You can't have that fear, and just go for it.
Yeah, I was really hoping to get you on the podcast. I was like, all right, I'm going to stop thinking why maybe he won't do it. I'm just going to send him a message and see what he says. And you got back, and I was like, yes, that just made my day. I want to thank you so much for being on the podcast, Adrian. Like, if listeners want to go and connect with you afterwards, where can they find you?
Oh man, they can find me almost anywhere. I'm on Facebook at Adrian.Conway, of course. And then I'm on Instagram at Adrian Conway _.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's the same on Twitter at Adrian Conway _. So you guys could DM me there or shoot me a private message if you got questions, comments, or concerns. And of course, you find me with Brute Strength if you're looking for some coaching. If you guys hope to punch that ticket and get into the top 10% this year in the Open and get to that quarterfinal, you need some help, it's not too late. And then, of course, fnxfit.com is where you can find all of our products. And we're launching a new product this weekend called Reburst. It's a wonderful carb/hydration product. It's very unique in the market space, and it's going to be pretty awesome.
Nice. I will definitely put your links in the podcast description below. And I'd highly suggest everybody to check out the Brute Strength training programs. They are legit. But thank you so much, Adrian, for coming on. I hope you have a good day.
Hey, thank you, brother. I appreciate being here.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Business Pump Podcast. Don't forget to like, comment, and hit that subscribe button. And stay connected with Michael on social media at @BMichaelGroff on all platforms.